Hey there, welcome back. So, internal communication. Let's face it, if my goal were to bore you to death, it would be hard to come up with a more soporific term than internal communication, right? And to be honest, those business functions that we associate with internal communication are no less snooze-inducing. But wait, don't leave. I promise that by the end of this video, I will blow your mind. I'm Dr. Lon Schiffbauer, and today we're going to answer the question, what is internal communication and why should I care? Okay, so now we're going to blow your mind, right? I mean, that's a pretty tall promise, especially when we think about the functions that are normally associated with internal communication. We're talking about things like company policies, reports, meetings, announcements, project updates, corporate training, day-to-day collaboration with our coworkers, and direction from management and leadership. When it comes to the day-to-day job of getting work done, internal communication is ubiquitous and pretty dull. But is that all internal communication is? Not by a long shot. All these things I listed, meetings, reports, training, collaboration, these are just the outward manifestations of internal communication, or internal comms as it's sometimes called. So if internal communication is more than meetings, emails, and reports, then what is it? I'm so glad you asked. To answer this question, I want to tell you three stories. The first is the Judeo-Christian myth around the origin of languages. We have a ton of languages in this world, right? Where did they all come from? Well, this Judeo-Christian origin myth helps answer that question, as well as gives us an incredible insight into internal communication. In the beginning, mankind spoke a single language, the perfect language, God's language. And because they spoke this perfect language, there was perfect communication, perfect understanding. There were no misunderstandings, no miscommunications. Every thought, idea, and direction could be communicated perfectly. Well, these folks, they thought pretty highly of themselves, equal with God, in fact. So they decided to build a great tower, so tall that it could reach all the way up to heaven. I mean, what better way to show that you've arrived than by moving into the neighborhood? And since they all spoke the perfect language, they were actually pulling it off. Well, as you might imagine, God was not cool with this, so he decided to throw a monkey wrench into the works. Now, obviously, being God and all, he had quite an arsenal of curses to choose from when deciding how best to make the lives of his children miserable. We're talking plagues, locusts, earthquakes, floods, committee assignments, you name it. But in this case, he didn't choose any of these. Instead, one night, he confounded their language. So when everyone woke up the next morning, each one of them spoke a different language. So, as you might imagine, construction on the tower came to an immediate halt, and things began to fall apart. Unable to communicate in any meaningful way, everyone just sort of wandered off, and before you know it, the world is full of a plethora of hopelessly imperfect languages. Now, like most origin myths, this story is far more interested in delivering a cautionary tale than it is in really getting into the details of language development. Still, you have to admit, as far as Deus Ex Machina is concerned, the idea of confounding a language is a pretty cheeky curse. Still, it's just a myth, right? Jump ahead a few thousand years to September 23, 1999. On that day, dozens of NASA engineers watched in absolute horror as the $125 million Mars Climate Orbiter, after its almost year-long journey, veered off course and burned up in the thin Martian atmosphere. So what went wrong? Well, as it turned out, Lockheed Martin, which had performed the thruster calculations, sent the figures to NASA in standard English units. However, the NASA engineers read and entered the figures into the rocket's guidance system in metric. Once again, mankind was reaching for the heavens, and as before, a misunderstanding between two languages brought their tower tumbling down. So we start with a myth, move to an object lesson, courtesy of NASA. But now let's look at our third story, And once again, we're going to look at NASA. Don't get me wrong, NASA's awesome. It's just they happen to have some great object lessons to share. In an NPR report published in May 2017, reporter Jeff Brumfield interviewed Wayne Hale. Earlier in his career, Wayne Hale worked for NASA and was responsible for overseeing shuttle launches. On February 1st, 2003, Wayne Hale and a bunch of others were out at the Kennedy Space Center waiting for the arrival of the Space Shuttle Columbia. Unfortunately, the Space Shuttle never arrived. Upon hitting the atmosphere, the shuttle broke apart and basically exploded, killing everybody on board. When the shuttle had launched, some of the foam had fallen off of the main tank and hit one of the wings of the shuttle. Now, normally, this is no big deal. Foam has been falling off of the main tank and hitting the shuttle from the very beginning of the program. I mean, sure, it would scuff things up and they'd have to do some repairs upon return, but it was no big deal. This time, though, it was a big deal. This time, though, when the foam fell off, it hit the left wing and punctured a tiny little hole into the frame. When that shuttle came back into the atmosphere and superheated gases started to fill the frame, it started to melt, it buckled, and it fell apart. Now, this might have been the actual mechanical reason for the destruction of the space shuttle, but to Wayne Hale, the root cause was a failure in internal communication. As he put it, all real problems are people problems. It's not, did the foam come off the tank? It's why did people let the foam come off the tank? Why did we think it was okay for foam to come off the tank? Now, as it turns out, there were engineers lower down in the organization that were concerned about the foam coming off the tank. Thing is, their concerns were not clearly communicated. According to Wayne Hale, we have an awful lot of smart people in the space program, but many of them are not very good communicators. If someone brought a concern to you and it was, it just didn't sound logical, you were very dismissive and basically told them to get a life. The Columbia disaster showed Wayne Hale that ultimately poor communication was the root cause of this tragedy. And he saw it as his job to fix this problem. And to fix it, the first thing they needed to do was to become better listeners. As he put it, I really had to take a step back and start treating people with, okay, you've got this concern, I don't understand it. Back in the old days, I would have yelled at you, but you don't say that. And now I have to really think about how to get you to give me some more information. It was by improving internal communication, the communication between departments, making sure that people understood one another, that they were listening to the concerns, that he was able to bring about a more effective work environment. This story, as tragic as it is a wonderful example of the importance and power of internal communication. Ultimately, the purpose of internal communication is to inform, influence, and affect the attitudes, feelings, and behaviors of those in the organization to meet business objectives. As Stanley Fish said in his book about how to write a sentence and how to read one, people write or speak sentences in order to produce an effect, and the success of a sentence is measured by the degree to which the desired effect has been achieved. In the case of internal communication, the effect we're trying to achieve is greater organizational alignment between a vision and the organization's objectives. So, more than meetings and emails, right? In this video series, we're going to talk about all the ways that internal communication helps us bring the team together such that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So I hope you'll stick around and join me on the journey. All right? And until we talk again, have a fantastic day.